It's funny how a life can change, not with a bang, but with a phone call on a Tuesday afternoon. 1 minute, I was Anna Clark, 69-year-old widow, folding a set of perfectly warm towels in my quiet Naperville home. The next, I was about to become what my sister Janice later called a local legend. But it didn't feel legendary at the time. It just felt final. My house was spotless. My late husband, Carl, always joked you could eat off my floors, but I just liked things orderly. Orderly house, orderly life. It's what you do when the kids are grown and the house is quiet. My son Marvin was in Austin. My daughter, Lucy, in Seattle. My life was made of these quiet, predictable days. I'd just come home from my water aerobics class at the senior center, the faint scent of chlorine still on my skin. The laundry was the last thing on my list before I settled in with my book and a cup of tea. The phone buzzed on the laundry table, vibrating against the wood. I smiled before I even looked. The caller ID said, Marvin. My heart did that little mom flip. It always does. Marvin, he's a good son. He works hard in tech, he's busy, and he's married to a very decisive woman, Tara. But he always calls. I picked it up, tucking it between my ear and shoulder as I kept folding. Hi, sweetheart. How's my favorite son? I heard him laugh on the other end. Mom, I'm your only son. And still my favorite. How's Austin? Is it still 100 degrees? Always hot, Mom. Listen, things are good. Work's crazy. Tara's good. She's great. We're starting to think about Christmas. Christmas. My shoulders relaxed. This was the call I'd been waiting for. Oh, I was just thinking about that, too. I was going to get a smaller turkey this year. Maybe just the three of us. Or are you two thinking of going to Tara's parents in Vermont? I know you went there 2 years ago. Oh, that's actually why I'm calling, he said. His voice was casual. Too casual. It was the same tone he used when he was a teenager about to tell me he'd dented the car. We're definitely coming to you. And hey, great news. Tara's whole family is going to fly in from Vermont, too. Her parents, her sister, her brother and his new wife, and her cousins, the twins. We figured, why not have one big, happy family Christmas at your house? It's been ages. I stopped folding. I was holding one of Carl's old, soft t-shirts that I used for dusting, and my hand just froze. So he continued, steamrolling right over the silence. It'll be, let's see me, Tara, her parents, her sister, her brother, his wife, the twins. That's 8. Plus her aunt and uncle from Milwaukee. They'll drive down. 10. And Tara's other cousin, the one who just graduated. 11. Oh, and her parents' best friends, the Millers, they're practically family. So maybe 14 of us will all be there for the week, from the 21st to the 28th. My hand was still frozen on that t-shirt. 14. My dining table seats 6. 8 if I add the leaf and we all breathe in and don't move our elbows. My house has 2.5 baths. Marvin, I started, but he kept going. It'll be great, Mom. Just like old times, but bigger. Oh, and by the way, Tara's going to send you a list of what her folks eat. Her mom's gluten-free, and her cousin is vegan now. I think she'll email you the details, so it's easy. Anyway, gotta run. My boss is calling. Love you. We'll see you on the 21st. And he hung up. I stood there, phone in my hand, listening to the silence. The warmth from the towels was gone. A different kind of cold was seeping in. It was that sharp, sudden feeling of being invisible. He hadn't asked. He had informed me. This wasn't an invitation. It was a booking. 14 people. For 7 days. Tara will send a list. My mind was reeling, doing the math. That wasn't just a big turkey. That was cots in the living room. That was lines for the bathroom. That was a grocery bill. that would make my eyes water. That was 7 straight days of me cooking, cleaning, and smiling until my face ached for a dozen people I barely knew. I'd be the unpaid innkeeper, cruise director, and short order cook. I looked around my clean, quiet, orderly living room. I pictured it covered in suitcases, wet snow boots, and strangers asking me where the extra blankets were. A small, hot feeling started in my chest. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was realization. It was the sound of a gear grinding and then clicking into a new place. My phone buzzed again. A text from Marvin. Forgot to ask, can you make your famous pecan pie? Tara's mom loves pecan. I looked at the text. I looked at my spotless kitchen counters. I thought about a house full of people who saw me not as a person, but as a place, as a service. I put the phone down, finished folding the t-shirt, and placed it on the stack. I smiled. It was a small smile just for me, and I said it out loud to the empty, quiet room. Oh, is that so? How ambitious. That's what I'd said. I stood there by the washing machine a good 5 minutes after the call, just letting that word hang in the air. Because Marvin's plan wasn't just ambitious. It was the final brick on a wagon that was already breaking. This wasn't new. This wasn't a sudden change in my son. This was a pattern that had started a few years ago, right around the time he married Tara, and I'd let it happen. Every time they pushed, I just made more room. I was the good mom, the easygoing mother-in-law. I was the default host, and I was so tired. My mind went back to Thanksgiving just last year. I'd spent 2 days prepping. I was up at 5 in the morning to get the turkey in. I made my grandmother's stuffing, the cranberry sauce from scratch, sweet potato casserole, green beans, and a pumpkin pie. I'd only asked them to do one thing. Marvin, I'd said on the phone, if you and Tara could just pick up a nice apple pie from that bakery you love, that would be wonderful. It'll save me one step. No problem, Mom, he'd said. They'd shown up at 2 in the afternoon, an hour late, and walked in empty-handed. Oh, Mom. Tara had laughed, brushing snow off her coat. We totally forgot the pie. The traffic was just awful, and we got so tied up. Marvin just shrugged. Sorry, Mom. You know how it is. And I'd looked at my beautiful, groaning table, and I'd looked at their faces, and I just smiled. Oh, it's fine, honey. No room for it anyway. And then, while they were watching football, I'd hurried into the kitchen and found that old, slightly frosty tub of store-bought vanilla ice cream in the back of the freezer to serve with the pumpkin pie. I remember my feet were aching so badly by the end of that night, I had to soak them in hot water before I could sleep. I'd laughed it off. Just ice cream. Just an apple pie. It's fine. But it was a yes. A small yes, but it was one more yes in a long line. Then I thought about Easter, just this past spring. It was supposed to be a quiet lunch. Just me, Marvin, and Tara. I'd made a small ham. I heard the car doors. Not 1, but 3. I opened the front door, and there they were, standing on my porch with 3 other people. Surprise, Mom. Marvin said, beaming. Tara's parents and her sister were in town, so we brought them. Hope you have enough food. I stood there, my heart doing a little panic flutter. Tara's parents and her sister. Here. Now, I didn't even have enough chairs at the dining table. Oh, wonderful, I'd said, my voice coming out a little high. The more the merrier. I spent the next 20 minutes in the basement, digging out the dusty old folding chairs. I wiped them down, squeezed them around the table, and then spent the entire meal in the kitchen carving the ham into thinner and thinner slices, trying to make it stretch. I was cutting up extra potatoes to throw in the oven, refilling wine glasses, finding extra napkins. I don't think I sat down once. I ate my own Easter lunch standing at the kitchen counter. Well, after everyone else had finished. They'd all left by 4, saying it was the best Easter ever. I'd spent the rest of the evening cleaning up. Sure, honey, of course. It just kept happening. The 4th of July, I'd planned a small barbecue. Just me and my neighbor Dorothy. I bought 4 hamburgers. I got a text from Tara that morning. Hey, Anna, we told the Hendersons they could swing by your barbecue. They're bringing their kids, and they're so excited to see your backyard. Just like that, my quiet afternoon turned into a party for 12. I had to run to the store twice for more buns, more potato salad, more paper plates. Marvin and Tara held court on my patio, laughing with their friends, while I worked the grill and ran back and forth for ketchup. I was the caterer. This wasn't my home. It was a free event space. I was dying by 1,000 small yes. And the person holding the knife, it was me. I was the one who kept saying, "It's fine. I don't mind. Of course." I'd done it to be the good mom, the helpful, accommodating mother. But standing there in my laundry room, I realized I hadn't been a good mom. I'd been a doormat, and I'd taught my son that my time, my home, and my money meant nothing. This Christmas, this wasn't an accident. This was the logical next step. They'd forgotten a pie, and I'd said yes. They'd brought uninvited guests, and I'd said yes. They'd taken over my holiday, and I'd said yes. And now they were bringing an army, because why wouldn't they? I had never, not once, given them a reason to think I'd say anything else. I looked down at my phone. The text was still there. Can you make your famous pecan pie? That was it. That was the moment. The click I'd felt earlier wasn't anger. It was a lock snapping into place. I wasn't just tired. I was done. I was done being the default. I was done being the good mom if it meant I wasn't even a person anymore. This year, they weren't going to get a yes. I spent the rest of the afternoon in a state of cold, quiet clarity. I finished the laundry. I put the warm towels away in the linen closet, and I made myself a chicken salad sandwich for dinner that I didn't really taste. The house was quiet. That click I'd felt in my chest had settled. It wasn't anger, not the hot kind. Anyway, it was resolve. It felt like a decision had been made, even if I didn't know what it was yet. That evening, I did what I always do. I tidied the kitchen, I fed my cat, Mittens, and I sat down at my desk in the den with a cup of chamomile tea. My den is my favorite room. It's got Carl's old leather chair, all our books, and it looks out onto the backyard. It's my safe place. I was going to check my email, pay a few bills, and then read my book. I clicked on my inbox, and there it was, an email. It had arrived about an hour after Marvin's call. The sender was Tara Clark. The subject line read, "Christmas food preferences." My hand was perfectly steady on the mouse. The old Anna, the yes mom, would have felt a jolt of anxiety. "Oh dear, I hope I can manage," she would have thought. But the woman sitting at this desk, she just felt a cold, sharp curiosity. I clicked it. It was a long email. It started friendly. "Hi, Anna. So excited for Christmas. It's going to be so great having the whole family together. Can't wait." Then it got down to business. Tara had made a bulleted list for her mother-in-law. First bullet, Mom's diet. Just a reminder, she's fully gluten-free. Not low gluten, but fully. So, any stuffing you make will need to be made with GF bread, and please make sure there's no cross-contamination in the kitchen. She gets very sick. I just stared at that. Cross-contamination. In my kitchen. As if I was a restaurant. Second bullet, Cousin Dale. Dale is vegan now, so he won't be having any turkey, gravy, or, well, most of the meal. He'll need a few dedicated vegan side dishes. Something with protein. If you can, maybe a quinoa casserole. He's also severely allergic to nuts, so please keep that in mind for everything. Third bullet, Atmosphere. My mom gets terrible migraines from scented candles. I know you love your holiday scents, but if we could keep the house scent-free this year, that would be amazing. The smell of pine is fine, of course, if it's a real tree. I looked over at the frosted cranberry candle I had been saving. So, my house, but her rules. Got it. I read through the list, my mind just ticking. The requests, the demands. Not a single, can you? Or is this too much? Just a list of facts. A list of things I would be required to do. I was about to close the email just to sit with it. But then I saw it. There was one more paragraph at the bottom. It wasn't even a bullet point. It was a PS. PS. Oh, and one huge favor, Anna. It's going to be a madhouse with so many of us, and my mom and I want to relax. To save time on Christmas morning, would it be possible to have everyone's gifts wrapped and under the tree before the 21st? We'll just ship them all to your house from Amazon. It would be amazing if you could just get them wrapped and tagged for us. You have such lovely handwriting. It'll just make the morning so much smoother for all of us. I read that last line, and then I went back and read the whole email again, start to finish. The gluten-free stuffing, the nut-free vegan quinoa, the no-scent candles, the gift wrapping. And then I laughed. It wasn't a giggle. It was a dry, raspy sound that came from deep in my chest. It was the laugh of a woman who had just been handed a lit stick of dynamite and was being asked to hold it just for a sec. They weren't just booking me in. They were expecting a 5-star, allergen-free caterer, a concierge, and Santa's workshop. They were shipping their gifts for their family to my house for me to wrap. That was the straw. No, that wasn't a straw. That was a 2x4. That was the moment the last tiny flickering ember of maybe I can make this work was snuffed out. I slowly moved my mouse. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it. I just closed the laptop. The screen went black. I sat there in the quiet of my den. The only sound was the tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. The clock Carl and I bought on our 30th anniversary. Mittens hopped into my lap, his little motor starting up a deep, rumbling purr. I stroked his fur. All those years of, yes, dear, of course, dear, whatever you need, they just evaporated. Gone. They wanted a host, a caterer, and a wrapper. They'd get none of it. I looked down at my cat, scratching him behind the ears. Not this year, Mittens, I whispered. Not this year. I actually slept last night. Deeply. For the first time in what felt like a year. When I woke up the next morning, the house was still dark, but I didn't feel that old, familiar knot of holiday anxiety in my stomach. I just felt quiet. I made my coffee. I fed Mittens, and I sat in the kitchen, watching the sun start to light up the frost on the backyard. The decision was made. Not this year. But now, in the light of day, I had a new problem. How? I couldn't just lock the doors and pretend I wasn't home. They knew where I lived. They had keys. They would just arrive. And I'd be stuck. I had to physically not be here. But where would I go? I walked into the dining room to water my poinsettias, the big red ones I bought at the church sale. I ran my hand over the smooth, polished wood of my dining table. This table, it had seen 40 years of Christmas dinners. Carl at one end, me at the other. Marvin and his sister Lucy spilling gravy and dropping stuffing, their little legs swinging under the chairs. I loved this table. It was the heart of my home. And I pictured it. 14 people, squeezed in. Tara's parents, the vegan cousin, the aunt from Milwaukee, people I didn't know asking me to pass the salt in my own home. I'd be running back and forth from the kitchen, managing the cross-contamination and the scented candle situation. My home wouldn't be a home. It would be a restaurant, and I'd be the only one working, Not this year, I said to the poinsettias. But how? I thought about my sister, Janice. She's in Sarasota, Florida. She's asked me to come for Christmas every year since Carl passed. But a last-minute flight, 2 weeks before Christmas? That's not just expensive. That's a mortgage payment. I stood there, holding the watering can, and then a conversation from last month's book club popped right into my head. My neighbor, Dorothy. Her kids are in California, and she'd been rattling around her big empty house, same as me. Anna, she'd said, leaning over the cheese plate, you will not believe it. I put my house on that Airbnb thing for Thanksgiving week, just for fun, to see what would happen. I made $2,200. $2,200. It paid for my whole trip to see the grandkids, and then some. People are crazy. I put down the watering can. The house was silent. I walked into the den, sat at my desk, and opened my laptop. My hands were shaking just a little. This was a crazy idea. I typed into Google, holiday rentals, Naperville. I had to take off my reading glasses and wipe them. The rates. The nightly rates. For a house like mine, this close to the holidays, people were paying a fortune. They didn't want a hotel. They wanted the cozy family home experience. They wanted the fireplace, the nice neighborhood, the big backyard for the kids. They wanted my life. Before I could talk myself out of it, my fingers were moving. I found the Airbnb site. List your space. Okay. I started writing. I've been a homemaker for 45 years. If there's one thing I know how to sell, it's a home. I didn't lie. I just described my life. Cozy family home near downtown Naperville. I wrote about the fireplace, the big, open kitchen, the dining table that was ideal for holiday dinners. I took a few pictures with my phone. The clean kitchen, the nice guest room, the living room with the fireplace, and the big, comfortable couches. I uploaded them. I set the dates, December 21st to December 28th, blocked. I set the price, a number that made my heart pound just to type it. I clicked publish, and then I sat back, my heart thumping against my ribs. What had I just done? This was crazy. This was mean. I almost clicked unpublish, but I didn't. I went to go make another cup of coffee, telling myself no one would book it this last minute anyway. I was halfway through the cup when my phone pinged. A notification. Booking request. My hand was shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. A couple from Denver. 2 kids. Their flight to see family in Ohio had been canceled, and they were trying to salvage a Christmas trip. Your home looks lovely. We'd be so honored to spend our Christmas here. I looked at the request. I thought about Tara's email. I clicked accept. My phone pinged again, almost instantly. Payment confirmed, $2,000. Just like that. It was done. I stared at the booking confirmed email on my phone. $2,000. And just a total lack of problems. A wave of something washed over me. It wasn't just relief. It was bigger. For a split second, the good mom voice in my head, the one that had run my life for 40 years, screamed at me, "You can't do this. Anna, this is your family. This is selfish. This is cruel." I sat there for a moment, letting that old, familiar guilt try to pull me back under. It was so strong. The idea that my job, my only job, was to be available, to be the host, to say yes, and yes, and yes again. And then I thought about Tara's email, the email that was still sitting in my inbox, a digital monument to my own invisibility. I thought about the gluten-free, cross-contamination-proof stuffing. I thought about the nut-free vegan quinoa. I thought about the demand that I not use my own candles in my own home. I thought about the PS, the request to wrap their presents for their family, like I was one of the elves. I looked at the $2,000 pending in my account. No, I whispered to the empty room. It's not cruel. It's just my turn. My heart was pounding, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was relief. It was pride. And I'll admit, it was a little pinch of mischief. I'd just solved my problem. I'd made $2,000, and I'd just bought myself a ticket to Florida. I looked up at the picture of Carl on the mantel, the one of us on the beach in Sarasota. He was grinning. I grinned back. I think Carl would have loved this. I whispered. That $2,000 was rocket fuel. As soon as I hung up with Airbnb, I was back on my laptop. O'Hare to Sarasota, December 20th. Sarasota to O'Hare, December 29th. I booked the flights. I didn't even wince at the holiday price. It was paid for. Then I called my sister, Janice. Anna, she answered, her voice always a little too loud. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Jan, I said, and I could hear the smile in my own voice. I was just wondering, do you have any spare sheets for the guest room? The shriek that came through the phone almost made me drop it. You're coming? For Christmas? You're finally coming? I'm finally coming, I said. I'll be there from the 20th to the 29th. It's a Christmas miracle, she yelled. I've got to clean the guest room. I've got to buy wine. Anna, this is the best. Wait, what about Marvin? What about the army? That, I said, is a story I will tell you over a glass of that wine you're about to buy. I'll see you on the 20th. I spent the next 2 days in a state of happy efficiency. I washed all my guest linens and towels, not for my family, but for the nice couple from Denver. I wrote out a little welcome note for them with the Wi-Fi password and instructions for the fireplace. I put my extra toiletries in a nice basket in the guest bathroom. I was a good host, a professional host. I still hadn't heard a peep from Marvin or Tara, not a single reply to my silence on the Christmas food preferences email. They just assumed. They assumed I'd gotten the email and was already stocking up on quinoa. The arrogance of it was just breathtaking. The call came on Wednesday night. I was knitting, watching a rerun of Matlock, and feeling perfectly, completely at peace. My phone buzzed on the side table. Marvin. I let it ring twice. Then I picked it up, nice and calm. Hello, sweetheart. Hey, Mom, he said, his voice breezy, like he was in the car. Just calling to confirm a few things. Tara's parents are going to bring their own air mattress, but they're wondering if you have a pump. Also, they'll bring some extra folding chairs, so you don't have to worry about that. I just interrupted. I didn't mean to be rude. I just did. Oh, honey, I said, my voice soft but firm. That won't be necessary. There was a pause. The breezy tone vanished. What do you mean? I mean, the house is booked that week, Marvin, I said, my knitting needles clicking in the silence. I just heard breathing. Booked, he finally sputtered. Booked for what? What are you talking about? It's booked on Airbnb, I said, as calmly as if I were giving him the weather. From the 21st to the 28th. I'll be away, too. The silence that followed was a completely different kind. It was cold. It was angry. Mom, what did you just say? Before I could answer, there was a fumbling sound, and then Tara's voice was on the line. It wasn't her breezy, "Hi, Anna" voice. It was sharp and high-pitched. Anna, are you joking? You can't be serious. Hello, Tara, I said, still calm. No, I'm not joking. The house is rented. You rented your house? At Christmas? When you knew we were coming? When you knew my entire family was flying in? Her voice was getting higher with every word. Actually, Tara, I said, I knew you were coming. I only found out your entire family was coming when Marvin dropped it on me like a weather report. And I found out what you expected of me when I read your email. My email, she said, like she had no idea what I was talking about. The food list? Anna, that was to help you. My mother is on a very strict diet. I understand that, I said, and I'm sure it's difficult to manage, which is why I wouldn't dream of trying. I'm not a short order cook, and I'm not a gift wrapper. There was a choked sound from her end. I can't believe this. This is the most selfish. Marvin, your mother is being unbelievable. Marvin got back on the phone. His voice was low. Mom, you have to cancel it. This is Christmas. This is family. You're renting your house out to strangers. Instead of hosting your own son and my wife's family, who flew all the way from Milwaukee. They haven't flown in yet, Marvin, I pointed out. And I'm not canceling anything. I'm going to Florida to visit my sister. Florida, he yelled. You're going to Florida? Yes, it's lovely there. Janice has been asking me for years. I then added as kindly as I could, Austin is lovely too. I'm sure there are plenty of hotels near the Riverwalk. You could all get rooms. There was a long, cold, heavy silence. I could hear him breathing hard into the phone. I just waited. I kept knitting. Click, click, click. Then he said, his voice quiet and mutinous, Mom, this isn't fair. I stopped knitting. I looked at the picture of Carl on the mantel. I thought of the Thanksgivings, the Easters, the 4th of Julys. I thought of the vegan quinoa. No, sweetie, it's not, I said. Fair has been on vacation for a few years now. It's about time I joined it. I pressed the red end call button on my phone. I didn't slam it. I just disconnected. The silence in my living room was thick. My heart was pounding, but it wasn't fear, not really. It was the shaky adrenaline you feel after you've just avoided a car crash. I had done it. I had said, no, not a week. Oh, I don't know, but a firm locked door bought the plane ticket. No. For a moment, I just sat there. I put my knitting in the basket. My hands were trembling just slightly. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't cried. I had just been honest. And in my family, apparently, honesty was a grenade. I sat there for a good 10 minutes, just breathing. I felt powerful and a little bit terrified and very, very tired. The real attack, the guilt campaign, as I call it, didn't start right away. They were regrouping. It took about an hour. My phone, sitting on the side table, buzzed. It wasn't a call. It was a text message. From Tara. It was one of those long ones. The kind you have to scroll and scroll and scroll to read. It started with, Anna, I am writing this because I am just shocked. She wrote about family. She wrote about tradition. She said I was putting Marvin in an impossible position. She said I was punishing them for wanting to be together. She said her parents were so excited, and now they didn't understand why I was being so, her word, hostile. She said, you've put us in a terrible position. My parents are elderly, and this is a huge stress for them. We bought non-refundable plane tickets based on your invitation. You've ruined Christmas. I had to read that part twice. My invitation? I didn't invite anyone. I was informed. And elderly? Her mother, Brenda, was 66. For years younger than me. I'd seen her playing in her tennis league just last month. And the tradition, that was a good one. It was my tradition of cooking, my tradition of cleaning, and their tradition of showing up empty-handed. I put the phone down. I didn't reply. What was there to say? Marvin waited until the next day. He was the reasonable one. He probably thought he'd let me cool off. My phone rang. Marvin, I took a deep breath. I let it go, and then I answered. Hi, Mom. His voice was different, not angry like last night. It was patient. The voice he used when he was trying to explain what a stock option was like I was a simple, confused child. Mom, I've been thinking, he said, I think we all just got a little heated last night. You're overreacting. It's just Christmas. Just Christmas. The words just hung in the air. I looked around my kitchen. I thought of the 3 weeks of planning, the endless grocery lists, the days of baking, the silver I had to polish, the guest beds I had to make, the work of it. It's just the one meal I spend weeks planning for, I said, my voice very quiet. It's just the hundreds of dollars in groceries. It's just the cleaning and the baking and the hosting and the wrapping you wanted me to do. It's just the exhaustion that leaves me feeling hollowed out by New Year's Day. It's not just Christmas to me, Marvin. It's a full-time job. And I'm retiring. He sighed. That long-suffering, oh, Mom sound. Mom, be reasonable. You're being dramatic. It's not a big deal. Just cancel the Airbnb thing. Tell the people there was a family emergency. We'll all come, we'll have a great time, and we'll forget all about this. Forget all about this. He was trying to erase it, trying to tell me that my feelings, my decision, were just a dramatic little moment. I'm not overreacting, Marvin. I said, I'm just reacting. Finally. And no, I'm not canceling. Mom, you're putting me in the middle, he said, his voice finally cracking. She's very upset. You've really hurt her feelings. What about my feelings, Marvin? I asked. This isn't about feelings, Mom. It's about what's right. Exactly, I said, and I'm going to Florida. I have to go, I'm packing. I hung up. The final shot came 2 days later. A voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I played it. Anna, hello, dear. It's Brenda, Tara's mother. Her voice was all sugar and honey-laced disappointment. Honey, I'm just calling because we're all just so disappointed. We were so looking forward to spending the holiday in your lovely home. We just thought you loved having us. We thought you loved having us. I listened to that voicemail, standing in my kitchen, and in that moment, all the other little things, the tiny little paper cuts of disrespect, they all came rushing back. I remembered Brenda, last Easter, standing in my living room, looking at my curtains, the ones Carl and I had picked out. Oh, Anna, she'd said, are these vintage? They're so dated. I remembered Marvin and Tara last Christmas forgetting their wallets when we all went out to dinner. The one night I thought I'd get a break. I paid. I always paid. I thought of the endless, unpaid grocery bills. Oh, Mom, you don't mind, do you? They weren't mad that I was going to Florida. They were mad that the free ride was over. They were mad that the default host had just quit her job. I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee. I put on the radio. It was Jingle Bell Rock. I started to hum. I sat down at my kitchen table, the sun streaming in. I opened my phone. Text from Tara. I held my finger down. Delete. Missed call from Marvin. Clear. Voicemail from Brenda. Delete. My phone was clean. My house was clean. And for the first time in a long time, my conscience was, too. I was sad it had come to this. Truly sad. But I wasn't caving. I had a plane to catch. The next 3 days were quiet. My phone stayed silent. No more texts, no more voicemails. They had fired their big guns. And when I didn't surrender, they retreated into a sulk. It was a strange, new silence. It wasn't the warm, comfortable silence I was used to in my house. It was a cold, angry silence coming through the phone lines from Austin. But you know what? It didn't matter. I was too busy. I was packing, and I realized as I pulled my small carry-on suitcase from the top of the closet that this was the first time in 30 years I was packing for a trip that was just for me, not a family-sized condo rental with a full kitchen, so I could save money by cooking. Not a road trip to see relatives, just a trip for me. My suitcase was so light. I packed 2 pairs of linen pants, A few nice tops, my sandals, a bathing suit I hadn't worn in years, and my reading glasses. That was it. No extra blankets, no emergency snacks for picky eaters, no first aid kit big enough for a small army. Just my things. I zipped it up. The whole process took 10 minutes. The morning of the 20th, I called my cab to O'Hare. The house was spotless, not from frantic companies coming cleaning, but from the simple, professional tidying I'd done for my guests. I left their welcome note on the kitchen counter, next to a bottle of wine I'd decided to leave them. It felt good, like a professional. Walking through the airport, I felt lighter. I wasn't trying to wrangle a family through security. I wasn't counting heads. I just had my one small bag and my purse. I bought a coffee and a bad magazine, and I sat at the gate, and I just sat. It was the most relaxed I'd been in a December in, well, forever. When the plane took off, I watched the frozen, gray landscape of Illinois disappear below the clouds. And I felt that little click of the seatbelt. And I thought, I'm doing it. I'm really doing it. Janice was waiting for me right past baggage claim, waving both her arms like she was trying to land the plane herself. She grabbed me in a hug that almost cracked a rib. You're here, she screamed. You're really here. It's not a dream. I'm here, Jan. I laughed. We walked out of the airport, and the air hit me. It was warm. It was 75 degrees. There was a breeze, and it smelled like salt and flowers. I'd been living in a world of ice and frozen ground for so long, I'd forgotten that air could feel like this. I took off the heavy wool coat I'd worn, and I just stood there for a second. It feels good, doesn't it? Janice said, grabbing my bag. It feels, I said, like I can finally breathe. And that's what we did for the next few days. We breathed. We didn't do much of anything. That was the whole point. We woke up when we wanted to. We had coffee on her little lanai, watching the palm trees. One afternoon, we just took our iced tea to a bench at the marina and watched the boats. We didn't talk about anything important. We talked about the people walking by. We talked about a pelican that was sitting on a piling. It was easy. On Christmas Eve, Janice said, "The boat parade is tonight. Do you want to go?" "What do we have to do?" I asked. "We have to walk 10 minutes and sit on a public bench. No cooking? No baking? No cleaning?" "Nope." "Then it's the best Christmas plan I've ever heard." So we did. We sat by the water as the sun went down, and all these boats, big and small, came by covered in Christmas lights. People were singing carols on the boats, waving to the crowd. It was beautiful. It was festive. And it was zero work. I was just a person in a crowd, watching something pretty. My shoulders, which I hadn't realized were permanently hunched up around my ears, just dropped. We were sitting on her couch on Christmas morning, in our pajamas, drinking coffee when my phone buzzed. A little jolt of the old anxiety went through me. I picked it up, but it wasn't from Marvin. It was a text from the Airbnb app. It was from my guests. "Good morning, Anna. Just wanted to say Merry Christmas. Your home is so lovely, and we are having the most wonderful time. The fireplace is just perfect. We hope you're having a wonderful holiday. P.S. We left a small thank you gift for you on the counter." I stared at the message. These strangers, they were in my house, being polite, gracious. They were thanking me. I showed the text to Janice. She read it and snorted. Well, what do you know? Decent people. See? They exist. It was a few hours later. We'd just gotten back from a walk on the beach, and I was sitting on her balcony, just looking at the ocean. My phone buzzed again. This time, I knew who it was. Marvin. It wasn't a text. It was a picture. I opened it. It was a masterpiece of passive aggression. The 7 of them, Marvin, Tara, her parents, her sister, the vegan cousin, all crammed into a beige mid-range hotel room. Tara's father was sitting on an air mattress on the floor, looking miserable. Tara was holding the baby and glaring at the camera. Marvin was in the back, with a look on his face that said, "See what you've done?" The caption right below it, "Hope you're enjoying the beach, Mom." The old Anna would have crumpled. My stomach would have dropped. I would have felt that hot, sick wave of guilt. I would have called. I would have apologized. But I just looked at the picture. I saw the cheap curtains. I saw the miserable-looking people. And I just felt sad for them. Sad that they were so determined to be miserable. Sad that their tradition was so fragile it could be broken by one person's refusal to be a doormat. I looked up from the phone. I looked at the actual, real-life ocean. The water was blue, and the sun was sparkling on it. I could hear the waves. I could feel the warm breeze. I picked up my phone. I typed one simple sentence, and I sent it. "I am. Merry Christmas, sweetheart." I put the phone down on the table, face down. I didn't want to see if he replied. "Janice," I called out, "is there any more of that iced tea?" My flight home on the 29th was nothing like the flight out. The flight to Florida had been an escape, a little secret. The flight back, it felt like a victory. I was tan. I was rested. My shoulders were loose. I had spent 9 days doing nothing but reading on the balcony, walking on the beach with Janice, and eating seafood. My phone had remained perfectly, blissfully silent from Marvin's end. I had no idea what was waiting for me back in Illinois, and for the first time in my life, I truly did not care. I took a cab home from O'Hare. The sky was the color of a wet nickel, and there was a bit of old, dirty snow in the corners of the yards. But I didn't feel that usual January dread. I walked up my own walkway with my one small light as a feather suitcase, and I unlocked my own front door. I stepped inside. The house was silent and spotless. Usually, when I came home from a trip, the house felt stale. But this was different. It smelled faintly of nothing, just clean. There were no piles of laundry, no kitchen counters covered in half-eaten leftovers, no pine needles ground into the carpet. There was no work waiting for me. I walked into the kitchen, and there, on my clean counter, was a little note propped up against a bottle of very nice-looking red wine. I picked up the note. It was from the Denver family. "Anna," it read, "we can't thank you enough for sharing your beautiful, warm home with us. It was the most peaceful Christmas we've had in years. We hope you had a wonderful holiday. We left a little something for you. Thank you again. The Millers." I stood there, holding that note, and I just smiled. I put the note on my fridge. I went to my computer, and I checked my bank account. There it was. A $2,000 deposit, clear as day. I had gone on vacation, and I had made money. I had returned to a spotless house, and the only thing waiting for me was a thank you note and a bottle of wine. I thought I could get used to this. That first week of January was quiet. I put my house back to normal, but normal felt different now. When I dusted my own mantle, it felt like I was doing it for me, not for a crowd. I had coffee with my neighbor Dorothy. I told her the whole story. She laughed so hard she had to wipe her eyes. "Well, Anna," she said, "looks like you're a businesswoman now." I hadn't heard a single word from Marvin. No, "Happy New Year, Mom." No, "Did you get home safe?" Nothing. I knew he was angry, but I wasn't afraid of his anger anymore. It wasn't my problem to manage. I was his mother, not his cruise director. He called on a Saturday, 1 week after I'd been home. "Mom." His voice was quiet, not sulking, not angry, just low. "Hi, sweetheart," I said. Are you busy?" "No, Marvin. I'm just here. Can I come over?" Just me. Tara's with her folks. My heart gave a little kick. Of course, I said. The door's open. 20 minutes later, he was at my kitchen table. The same table where I'd sat in a daze after his first call. I poured him a cup of coffee. He just stared into it for a long time. He looked tired, really tired. Mom, he finally said, not looking at me, I need to apologize. I just waited. I didn't say it's okay because I didn't know if it was yet. That whole week was... He shook his head. It was a nightmare. He finally looked up at me. I had no idea, Mom. I had no idea. No idea about what, Marvin? I asked softly. Any of it, he said, his voice cracking a little. The work of it. First, I had to find hotel rooms. For 14 people. At Christmas. Do you know what that costs? And Tara's parents complained the beds were too hard. And her sister complained because there wasn't a free breakfast. And then the food. We had to eat out. Every meal. For 14 people. Trying to find a restaurant that had a table that had something for the vegan cousin. That wasn't a 2-hour wait. It was all I did. I spent the whole week managing everyone's complaints. And paying. My credit card it's just... He ran his hands over his face. By day 2, I was exhausted. By day 3, I wanted to murder Tara's vegan cousin. By Christmas morning, I just felt like the world's biggest idiot. Because you do that. You've always done that. All of it. The food, the logistics, the complaints. You just handled it. And I never even saw it. I just showed up. And I didn't even bring the dessert. A little tear rolled down his cheek, and he wiped it away, angry at himself. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I treated you like a free hotel, like a caterer, and I'm sorry. This was it. This was the apology. It wasn't a sorry you were mad apology. It was a sorry I was a fool apology. I reached across the table, and I put my hand on his. Thank you, Marvin. I said, that means a lot. I forgive you. We sat in silence for a minute. It was a good silence. A clean one. He looked at me, his eyes all red. So, does this mean, will you host Christmas again next year? And there it was. The question. The old Anna would have said, of course, sweetheart. Don't be silly. But I wasn't the old Anna. I gave his hand a little squeeze. I love you, Marvin. And I love Christmas. But I am done being the default host. He looked confused. What does that mean? It means I'll host again on one condition. It's not my Christmas. It's our Christmas. It means we plan it together. It means you and Tara and everyone who comes helps. You help with the cooking. You help with the cleaning. You pay for your share of the groceries. It means I'm not the ringmaster of the circus anymore. I'm a part of the family, like everyone else. I'm done being the default. Honey, I'm just done. He looked at my hand on his. He nodded. Yeah, he said, letting out a long breath. Okay, yeah, that's more than fair. He finally genuinely smiled. God, Mom, you're a lot tougher than I thought. I'm not tough, Marvin, I said, smiling back. I'm just rested. Marvin left after that. He finished his coffee, gave me a real hug, a long, tight one like he hadn't given me since he was a boy, and he left. I sat at that kitchen table for a long time after he was gone. I looked around my quiet house. The old Anna would have been busy running around, fixing things, maybe feeling guilty for him. But the new Anna, she just sat. And I thought about that word I'd used. Rested. It was true. I felt like I'd just woken up from a very, very long nap. That Christmas, the one where I flew to Florida, It was the first one in 40 years I didn't spend in an apron. The first one I didn't cook a single dish for, didn't clean a single pot, didn't host a single person. And as I sat there, I realized it was the happiest, most peaceful Christmas I'd had in decades. It wasn't just about the money, though I have to be honest, the money didn't hurt. That $2,000, it sat in my bank account for about a week. Then I went and I hired a contractor. I had my guest bathroom completely redone, got rid of that old beige linoleum and the tub that was so hard to clean, put in a beautiful new walk-in shower with a seat, and every time I go in there, I smile. I call it the Tara's Christmas Demands bathroom. It's my little monument to saying no. And what about the next Christmas? Well, Marvin was true to his word. About 3 months before, he called. "Okay, Mom," he said, "let's plan the battle." And we did. We made a potluck list. A real one. Tara's parents flew in, and they stayed at a hotel. Tara and Marvin and the kids stayed with me. And Tara, she was different. She walked in, gave me a hug, and handed me a list. I must have tensed up because she laughed and said, "No, Anna, it's the list of things I'm cooking." And she did. She made the stuffing. Her mom, Brenda, she actually complimented my curtains. She said, "Oh, Anna, these are so classic." I just smiled and said, "Thank you, Brenda." We've done that twice now. And last year, I didn't want to host at all. I was just tired. The new tired. The normal kind, not the about to collapse kind. So I told them, I'm taking this year off. And you know what? The world didn't end. They went to Tara's sister's house. And I rented my house out on Airbnb again, just for the peace and quiet. I spent a week watching old movies, eating store-bought cookies, and I didn't put up a single decoration. It turns out tradition is often just a nice word for doing the same hard thing over and over so nobody else has to. The real tradition is just being together. And together doesn't have to mean exhausted. And that's why I wanted to tell this story. Not to brag or to tell every woman out there to rent her house out, but because I look at my friends, I look at women my age, and I see so many of us who are just so tired. We are the default hosts of the world. We're the sure, honey women. We've spent our whole lives making sure everyone else is comfortable, and we forget that we're allowed to be comfortable too. We're so afraid of being called selfish that we end up empty. So I have to ask you, and I really want to know, when was the last time you said yes, when you were screaming no on the inside? What's the gluten-free stuffing demand in your life? Have you ever had to choose yourself, even when it was hard, just to get a moment to breathe? I would be so honored if you shared your story in the comments below. I'm going to be reading them because I've learned that when one of us tells our story, it gives another woman the permission to tell hers. It helps us all remember that we are allowed to rest. If this story, if it felt familiar to you, if it touched a little part of you, please give this video a like. It really does help the story find other women who might need to hear it. And if you think someone in your life needs to hear it, a sister, a friend, maybe even a daughter, please share it with them. And of course, if you'd like to hear more stories, more conversations like this one, I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot to talk about. Lastly, remember to download this wonderful book called Real Prayers for Real Life. You'll find it in the pinned comment below. Now, if you like this story, go ahead and click on the next video appearing on your screen, because in it is a story of betrayal and revolt like you've never seen before on Her Kindle Stories. Thank you for listening.